Patrick.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Mater.
Everyone.
Hey. Right in the kitchen. There we go. Could you not, please?
Okay, Zavi is in the waiting room. So let's see, I believe we're waiting for Izzy, the mayor. There is Zavi.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you, Faith.
Great, great. How's
Council
everybody
President.
doing? Hi, Amanda.
Yeah.
Xavier, Jamie, Bernie. Oh my God. Hey.
Hello all. Hey, just a heads up, Pete won't be joining us this afternoon. He's excused.
Okay.
All right.
Like a weird Brady Bunch situation here.
Yeah.
I have to look down. Hey, Amanda.
This is not, there's a call coming. Hold on, everybody.
Technically live to the public right now.
Hello?
I think that's a question
yes.
for Patrick, because what's happening is we're being,
Yep.
oh,
Hello?
Is this the city council meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, but just so you're aware, what we're gonna do is, when each agenda item comes up, there'll be a time for public comment during that period. If you're interested in viewing the
good to see
meeting, we
everyone.
have it streamed live on the city's YouTube page, or YouTube site.
Yes, you all.
Hey,
Okay,
I'm
actually,
maybe
maybe I'll-
too, like crazy.
Maybe I'll just want to.
I think that's
Right,
been
if
the
you wanna,
hardest
if you
part.
wanna listen
Like, I've
to,
just been saying, like, I
the
miss my
discussion during the
friends, I miss
meeting,
my
you
colleagues.
can go onto the city YouTube,
Like,
site.
It's not even like I don't
Okay.
even
The
want to
call-in
like
number
I will
is
do
just for
that.
people to
spend
make public
money
comment.
and like
Okay, thank you.
go hang out. It's like no, I just want to
Where
like
to
just
spend money. There's nothing open.
Yeah.
You can only spend money at the grocery store and the pharmacy.
right. I'm getting really good at baking.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, Faith, my hair really misses
I think
you.
it is
Like,
now.
it's.
Yeah, you're not in that boat by yourself. You are not in that boat by yourself. There's tons of other people that are like,
Yep.
they're sending me all these weird pictures about what they're going to look like when they get out of quarantine.
Right.
Someone cut their bangs.
Okay, so, just so everybody's aware, we are, live up on YouTube. Just
Okay.
wanna make sure everybody knows that.
Yep.
We are, waiting for Counselor Diaz. No, she's on, I only have her on audio. I'm not seeing her, her video. The mayor is joining us now. And Chris Delphs is connecting via audio right now. There's the mayor.
I'm here.
Hey, Mayor.
How are you?
Mayor, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Too many Zoom calls. Oh, it's so good to see your faces.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
You know.
You know.
When the meeting is over, I'll send you all a picture of what this room looks like. I feel like I'm at a bit of a Starship console or something.
Right.
The motherboard.
No, we're the Brady Bunch.
I know. I like it. We've been doing like Brady Bunch things all the time.
Right, I said, Amanda, you have to look up and say hello to me.
Yeah.
Hello to me.
Now it's Izzy. Gotta.
Yeah, everybody's tile looks a little different on their
I
own,
have to look at
their
that,
own
'cause,
screen.
See, I'm looking at Bernie, and that makes sense. Like, I like Bernie in the center of it all.
Oh, okay.
I'm on top of Faith.
Okay.
How are you?
Okay, so the only, person, I wanted to make sure that Counselor Diaz can hear us and that, we can hear her.
Can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, good,
Yep.
okay, perfect. So I have the, city solicitor sitting here, we're at the, appointed time, so I'll turn it over to, President Smith Waddell.
Thank you very much. I lack a flag, and so if everyone will bear with me, I'm just gonna dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance this time.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's good.
Great. We'll move right along. Welcoming everybody participating at home to a city council special council meeting. This is how we're doing this now, just to make sure that we are meeting our obligations, both to keep you publicly engaged and to keep you and everybody here safe. So thanks for bearing with me. I'll be pausing after each agenda item in case people want to call in for the appointed public comment relevant to that item. And I do have to remind anybody watching from home, this is not a regular meeting of city council, and so public comment is restricted to the items on the agenda. There is no generalized public comment section here, just so we're all aware of that. With that, Mr. Harris, would you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Bakay.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Here.
Mr. Soto. And President Smith Waddell.
Here. Councilor Soto is excused this afternoon. We'll move right into our legislative agenda. Administration Resolution number 19, 2020.
The resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing Patrick S. Hopkins, Business Administrator, to execute for and on behalf of the City of Lancaster all required forms and documents for the purpose of obtaining financial assistance for costs associated with the COVID-19 pandemic disaster designated as Pennsylvania COVID-19 EM 3441.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. This is pretty straightforward. Whatever funds we're eligible for from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, we're authorizing Patrick S. Hopkins to go get them for us. That's something that we want to do both for our immediate needs and for the city's long-term fiscal health. Patrick, if you'd like to add anything else.
That really pretty much covers it. This is just a requirement that PEMA and FEMA have for their disaster application process, and we're using the same format that we've used with prior FEMA disaster emergencies, which were weather-related.
Right. Thank you. So just so you guys know, we'll open it up to council comments when you're done, and then after that, I will probably just allow a minute of time for people to get it together and call in if they choose to do so, and then after that, I'll move on. Is everybody okay with that?
Just one point on the call-ins. I just want to make sure that anybody who may be calling in, we have one line here, so this will be basically on a first-come, first-serve basis. We'll answer a call, and then when that call is over, then it'll be opened up again.
Great. And then, Patrick, would you just say the number aloud that people can call in?
Sure. The number is 717-517-5704.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. President.
All right. Council comments on the matter.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Harris.
Procedural note. Can we have a motion and second so we can bring this on the table for discussion?
I guess if we have to. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Harris. All right. Council comments.
No, I think this is what we need.
Yep.
In order to move in an expedited process, so I really appreciate all the work that the city administration is doing, and what you're taking on, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Welcome. So we already have a call coming in, so I want to just make sure there aren't any other council members. And now it's not coming in. Jumping the gun a little bit.
Well, okay, we'll just, we'll wait a moment to see if there are any other calls.
Now there's one.
Okay,
Hello, this is the city council meeting.
Hi, this is Tony Dastra.
Can you all
is
hear?
that Tony?
Yes.
This is Tony. So I'm calling just because I'm listening in and like the sound is not so great on my end. I'm having trouble hearing it even through speakers. I just wanted to call, let you guys know.
Thank you, Tony. I have Amber, Amber Strazzo texted me earlier, said she's listening on the YouTube and is able to hear it fairly well, so.
Okay, it might just be me.
Okay. Well,
Hi.
first of all, thank you, Tony, for your fidelity on that. That's remarkably on brand and necessary. So thank you for making sure that it's available and accessible.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh. Counselor Smith-Waddell is frozen, I think. All right.
Yes. That's the most still I've ever seen him.
He's frozen, is he? Come on now.
There's not enough bandwidth in our household.
There was no way we were going to get through this meeting without at least one technical hiccup.
Yeah.
I'm sure to speed up in a bit. Oh, he jumped on. He'll get back on.
I was gonna say, let him come back.
This is teaching us patience in so many ways.
Oh, Zavi.
Agreed.
Statement. Sorry, I have to remember the formality of a council meeting. Yes, counselor.
There's nothing normal about this. I think we should embrace that a little bit.
So Tony said he was having a hard time hearing.
Yes. Yeah, but I also just got a text message from Jess, who was watching remotely and was able to hear us okay. So
My apologies all.
Come back.
yeah, there have been no more calls since your technical difficulties, so we're good to go to the next agenda item.
Okay, did we?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
So it's going to be voted on resolution number 19.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed that last bit. Was that a yes?
No, we did not.
We have not
Okay.
voted, so it's time to vote.
Great. In that case, Mr. Harris?
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Ms. Baker?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina?
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell?
Aye. All right, moving on to Administration Resolution number 20.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with Community First Fund and Asset for the creation and administration of a small business economic recovery loan program to be known as the Lancaster City Small Business Emergency Fund, directing the mayor and other proper officials of the city to execute the agreement and contribute $250,000 to the fund, and directing the mayor, solicitor, and other officers of the city to take any actions necessary to effectuate the term of this resolution.
Excellent. I'll hear a motion.
Motion
To approve?
Second.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. Chris, are you taking this one?
Sure, I can. Mayor, would you like to speak to this, or should I jump in?
No, please go ahead and jump in. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Yes, thank you, councilors. I can translate the resolution to simple terms, just to give you a little more background of how this is developed and how this will proceed forward. As many of you may know, we do have an enterprise loan fund that we have used to provide loans to businesses in the city for many years now. Through internal conversations here in the administration and with our economic development partners in the city, we've decided to use a portion of this enterprise loan fund, and the city will allocate $250,000. I will actually be a 0% interest loan to Community First Fund. That agreement will also include not just Community First Fund, but assets as well. Through this contribution to the fund, we have the ability to leverage an additional $1 million from Community First Fund and from assets to have a total small business loan fund of $1.25 million. So it has really mutual benefits. It allows us to have more buying power, essentially using city funds, and it also allows Community First Fund to issue loans to small businesses who qualify at a lower rate than they would otherwise. For the first year of any loans to qualified small businesses, it would be a 0% interest loan. It would be 6 months deferred payment, and then in years two through 5, that interest rate would go up to 4% for years 2 through 5. That is really the crux of the agreement that the resolution spells out. And just wanted to say a quick thank you to others who have worked on this. I think the Entrepreneurship Coalition has been involved in this concept. Many of small businesses in the community who are working with the Entrepreneurship Coalition, who advocated for this idea with the Community First Fund and with assets. And we're really pleased to be partnering with those two organizations. We're trying to find a way. We know that there are a series of relief financial assistance options that are coming down from the federal government. It is taking time and a lot of effort to navigate those federal assistance efforts, and we're seeing this local fund as one small piece of a larger puzzle to help provide a bridge to hopefully additional relief that small businesses may need in the future. We're also seeing this as a phased approach, and we're happy to be setting up this private-public partnership infrastructure. So if it goes well, we're going to monitor the performance of this program, and if it goes well, we may be able to use it in other ways in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delps. Yeah, I think this is a strong step forward, and I appreciate the administration, Assets, Community First Fund, and of course the Entrepreneurship Coalition for their forward thinking on this. So while we're looking at this pot of money, I know that we've received some questions about the criteria. What determines which businesses are available, and who's really going to be overseeing applications? And you talked to me a little bit about that, but for the benefit of council and the public, would you please elaborate?
Sure. In the agreement that is before council, it does note that there will be criteria established in concert with the city assets and Community First Fund. We already do have a scoring framework, a set of criteria that we would utilize. We haven't finalized that yet, but just to give you a sense of what those criteria would entail, we would be looking at business history as one of the criterion, just to make sure that we are focused on those businesses that have had longevity and have an iconic presence here in the city. We'll be looking at the number of employees so we understand the ripple effect to our workforce. We'll be looking at what we're calling inclusive economic impact. So getting more points, so to speak, for women and minority-owned businesses. In addition to that, we'll be looking at the debt ratio of the business and what revenue percentage has been lost since the beginning of the pandemic. And then the last couple of items, criteria that we'll be looking at will be whether it's a storefront business, meaning does it have a presence on the streetscape? Does it really contribute to the character of our city? And then finally, I think we're may have an extra credit criterion for businesses that are having a positive community impact. For example, if they're a B corporation or something of that nature. So I think we've got a pretty good framework to start. I'll give a shout out to Assets. They put together that first set of criteria, and we've been working through and trying to massage those. So that's where we're headed.
Council comments.
I just want to express my gratitude to the mayor, Chris, your team for working on putting this together. This is a huge step forward, I know, for the small business community, and being in a lot of these conversations have been the hardest hit. So while there's a lot of Fed and state dollars that are happening for small business relief, a lot of that's taking a little bit longer to trickle down to our small business community and specifically our most vulnerable small business owners. So putting together this type of partnership is going to help them access capital and hopefully keep their doors open during a time like this. So just want to say thank you for working hard on this.
And
Thank you, Butler.
Ditto what Jamie said. It'll be amazing how big of a help this is going to be to small businesses.
Chris, I have a question regarding the, here. I think that as I was reading, there was a note where if this is successful, there is an opportunity for us to increase this by a certain amount or act again. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. We understand that this is a new program. It's a new arrangement with Community First Fund. We want to make sure that we're being good fiscal stewards and that we understand the performance of the program. So we'd like to do it, the $250,000 as a first phase. As many of you know, we only have one economic development administrator here, Marisol Torres, who does a great job, but she manages a lot of different programs. So the hope is if we can see this managed through a partnership effectively, that we may be able to utilize additional enterprise loan funds in the future. Or the other thing that is evolving right now is community development block grant funding through the federal government. And one of the eligible categories is business technical assistance and loans and grants. Now, we still have a lot to figure out on the CDBG side, but that could be another source of funding for this purpose in the future as well.
Thank you.
And then I also want to piggyback and just express gratitude for the adaptiveness that you've all demonstrated in taking this at a level of sincerity and passion that I haven't seen from other communities. So I think we really are being innovative in a lot of ways. The one thing that I wanted to kind of get more information on is, would a franchise downtown like Jimmy John Starbucks, would they be qualified or eligible for this funds? Or did we define what a small business is to us within the process?
That's a really good question. And I'll answer it two ways. We actually just talked about this with our solicitor, Barry, a little while ago. There is language in the agreement that states that this loan fund is directed to, it's focused on businesses that have less than $1 million in annual revenue. So it really is directed to the smaller businesses in our community, not large corporations. I will note that franchises present sort of a unique situation because Barry has explained to me that franchises, depending on the company, are set up different ways. So there is a possibility that a franchise could be eligible. I think that flexibility at this point is not necessarily a bad thing, but the ultimate selection on the loan would really determine on how it performs in the selection criteria.
And if I may piggyback, my understanding, Councilor Garcia Molina, is that has primarily to do with the degree to which the franchise itself is independent from sort of the parent or franchising company. So if it's independently owned, and the revenues are less than $1 million, then yes, it would theoretically be eligible. But if it's more licensed or not independently owned, then the revenue considered would be that of the sort of nationwide brand. And so, somebody had raised to me the question of, for example, the differentiation between, say, Starbucks and the Suarez family McDonald's on King Street. That the impact and sort of relationship based on who owns it and their engagement in our community are things sorted out both by the legal agreement and in the selection criteria. So we do have sort of 2 points of contact with that question.
Whose mouth is it feeding?
Right.
In the day. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to know, because it's been brought up to me, is I think this is a good first step. Some businesses are appreciative but also hesitant to go into more debt. Are we exploring or looking into the possibilities of grants as we evaluate this program moving forward?
At this time, for the enterprise loan dollars, unfortunately, we cannot use those as grant money because of the way they were originally allocated through the state. They were allocated as part of the enterprise loan program, which was for initial loans and then to set up a revolving loan fund. So unfortunately, with that particular pot of money, we can't. I know that our partnership with Community First Fund and with assets and with the small businesses, I know there has been an ongoing fundraising effort to encourage Lancaster in order to get a pot of money for grants for small businesses. That is one part of the larger whole. As I mentioned earlier, I do think there could be the possibility of some grant funds through CDBG, but that I do caution you, that is going to take a little bit of time for us to work through. The last piece that I would mention is that businesses that are within the CRIZ district are eligible for grants and for loans for physical improvements right now. We've been working with Randy Patterson at the CRIZ to explore a legislative change at the state level to allow those CRIZ funds for businesses within the CRIZ to utilize grant and loan money for working capital and immediate needs as opposed to capital improvements. We're still working through the timeline, and that would probably go before state legislature in May or June.
Okay, thank you.
Randy just sent me an email saying that it would have to be probably tied to the budget. So it's not an assured thing, but it's something that we are pursuing.
If there are no other council comments, I will here wait for calls from the public on the matter.
Do you want to give that phone number out again, just in case?
Sure.
Yeah, I believe that's 717-517. Oh,
There's one coming in now.
5704.
Hello, this is the city council
I think
meeting.
Patrick has a call.
Hello? Hello? Okay, there's nobody on the other end of the line here. I'm gonna disconnect it. Incoming call, but nobody on the other end.
Uh-oh.
So we should probably give it another minute.
Patrick's on mute.
Does he know that you know that you're on mute, Patrick?
Everybody's dream, Patrick on mute. That was a incoming call, but when I tried to answer several times, there was nobody on the other end of the line, so.
I have a question.
Councilor Diaz.
Okay, the question that was sent to clarify, businesses in the CRIZ that have been contributing or just in the CRIZ altogether?
The emergency, so the Lancaster City Small Business Emergency Fund that is before council today, which would set up the emergency loan fund, would be for all eligible small businesses across the whole city. My last comment about the CRIZ was just related to the Small Business Financial Assistance Program that currently operates under the CRIZ.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
There have been no other incoming calls, just so you're aware.
What?
There have been no other incoming calls.
All right, well, I'll give them, let's take an additional 30 seconds if everyone will bear
And
with me.
now that I say that, there is.
Here we go.
Hello, this is the city council meeting?
Oh, it's me again. But I am able to follow along, Tony. But I was just curious, because you mentioned two particular businesses, the Starbucks and the Suarez family McDonald's. Can anybody potentially speak to where the convention center and those associated businesses might fall in this whole agreement?
Mr. Harris, can you clarify Mr. Dastro's question? We couldn't quite hear it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand it.
So
Not Mr. Harris, Mr. Hopkins.
yeah, I heard at least part of it. So, Tony, if I'm right, your question is whether or not the Convention Center Authority or other related businesses in that facility would be eligible for this loan fund?
More or less, yes.
Yes.
So my understanding, I struggle to imagine that the Marriott has less than $1 million in revenue, but maybe you could answer that question, Mr. Jones.
That's my understanding as well. It would really be focused on businesses that are a lot smaller and not affiliated with the convention center.
Right. So I guess the question I should ask for clarification then is this $1 million of revenue, like, because I don't fully understand where the responsibility lies, because the Marriott's a brand in the same way McDonald's and Starbucks are brands. I don't think the community is completely aware of like how or who operates the convention center. So I think it's important that we discuss kind of could this potentially happen at all? Not even like, not just saying, hey, they probably are fine, like educating us, because I don't know the details entirely.
So if I understood his question correctly, Mr. Hopkins, and since you're right there, let me know. It was, could it possibly, is there any universe in which the Marriott Convention Center could benefit from this program? Per the parameters, I don't think that they would meet any of the selection criteria. But again, I think the biggest stopgap there is just the question of how much revenue they bring in that would make them ineligible for the program. I spoke hedging a little bit earlier, but the convention center, the Marriott very clearly does more than $1 million worth of business. And to be clear, it's not $1 million worth of profit, it's $1 million worth of revenue. But so I am, I think as certain as I can be that they cannot benefit per the regulations of the program, and additionally, if they could, would not rise to the top given the criteria and the number of businesses that we anticipate to apply.
All right.
But if anybody else from the city wishes to provide additional qualification to that, now would be the time.
Counselor, that was very well said. I have nothing to add.
I think that answers my question.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, just to speak additionally, both from the letter of this agreement and from the spirit, I think we all understand that that's not the kind of business that we're looking to take action to preserve. There are hundreds of small businesses
Right.
in Lancaster City, and primarily those that are working with people south of King Street, that are owned by people of color, owned by women, that really make up the long-term character of our community, and we want to make sure that they're still here as we come out of this crisis. So that's where we're focused. Thank you, Mr. Dastra. That's an important question.
Thank you.
Okay, I've ended that call.
I do have one more question. Oh, go ahead,
Of course.
Janet. I
The
think Janet
first-
said something.
Okay. Let's see. Will applications be reviewed first before funds get distributed to determine the need?
Yes, Counselor, thank you for that question. Yes, absolutely.
Just,
And Chris, just as an addendum to that, is the plan to take applications in batches so that their need can be evaluated based on need
Hello, this
and
is the city
available
council meeting.
funds?
Hello, yes.
First come, first serve.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
That's really a
Yeah.
question that we need to work through with Community First
so
Fund and
If you can just
their
hold on just a
capacity
second,
right
ma'am,
now.
we're waiting for,
Underlying
a little bit
intention
of
of this
conversation in the
program
meeting
is to try to
occur.
get up and
Sure.
moving as fast as we can. At the same time, I do want to be cognizant that, that Community First Fund and assets have been serving other needs in the community right now. They've been providing technical assistance related to the Paycheck Protection Program for the federal stimulus dollars, for example. So we haven't quite worked out exactly the protocols for processing the applications, but really the most important thing is that we are going to have a robust and hopefully simple application that we can then apply the criteria and make good decisions as rapidly as we can.
Okay, that's clarifying. And in addition,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to,
obviously about paying attention to the sort of businesses that Assets typically works with. So with that in mind, and sort of with our most vulnerable communities or our most disenfranchised communities in mind, has the subject of businesses owned by or that for some reason might especially serve LGBTQ folks, have those come up in your discussions with Assets or CFF?
I'm sorry,
If
before
not, could they please?
Chris answers that question, I just want to there is another call on the line right now, so.
Okay, well, if you'll ask them to hold just long enough for Chris
Yep,
to answer the question.
I have.
Much appreciated. Go ahead, Chris.
We have not talked specifically about the LGBTQ community with Assets thus far, but we have talked about the importance of reaching vulnerable populations in the city. And we've talked about actually potentially providing an additional grant for Assets specifically to do technical assistance to navigate the different set of financial assistance programs. So they would potentially be helping out small businesses who are applying for our loan fund, our city loan fund, but also for the federal programs as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hopkins, your question.
Yes, so, ma'am, are you still on the line?
I'm still on the line, yep.
Okay, you can go ahead now, please.
Great. This is Ann Kirby, and I'm calling on behalf of Encourage Lancaster, and I just wanted to thank you all for your work on trying to get some funding into the larger small business emergency funds. We do appreciate the acknowledgement as well, and that you understand the importance of small business. One thing I want to emphasize is the small businesses that are 5 employees and less, and how impacted they are, especially now with funding drying up on the PPP front. So what you're doing is of great importance. And I also want to call upon leadership to acknowledge the Encourage Lancaster GoFundMe fund as well, which is working with Assets and Community First Funds in alignment with this loan project to look at cash grants for small businesses. Because as you understand, adding more debt isn't going to help small businesses. So looking at how aggressively we can get the word out about the need for cash grants and not just loans, and engage with the public on that issue. So just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and helping make this happen, and also to call upon you to help bring attention to the cash fund component of this pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirby. And I think that's actually related to, Chris, what you had spoken about earlier with other fundraising efforts. There is an effort ongoing to raise funds, as Ms. Kirby said, not in opposition, but really parallel with this effort and in partnership with Community First Fund and Assets. Do I have the right of that, Mr. Delfs?
Absolutely. And I did note it earlier, and I'm very happy Ms. Kirby called in. I've been hearing, I've not spoken with her directly of late, but I've been hearing about all the great work that she's been doing and the leadership that she's provided. And we've really thought about this fund as one part of a larger small business development and recovery strategy. And so I appreciate that she called in to further highlight the efforts, because that's a critical component of what's moving ahead.
And another incoming call.
I have a question too.
Hello, this is the city council meeting.
Hi.
Hello?
I see. Hello, I'm calling in for the city council meeting.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Is this Patrick?
Yes, it is.
There's a time delay. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry, just turning off my volume so I'm not hearing the backlog. My name is Eric Fisher, and I'm a member of Put People First Pennsylvania. I wanted to piggyback on the question that Councilperson Izzy brought up about LGBTQ people. Just to clarify, twice we've heard that this will support vulnerable business owners, and I think that's wonderful. I want to applaud you for doing that, and also want to applaud you just for having this forum here for us today. But I've only heard really women and people of color being identified as vulnerable community, and I'd love to hear from all of you. I'd love to hear someone uplift the truth that LGBTQ people are also very often vulnerable in communities across the country and here in Lancaster, and that LGBTQ-owned businesses have been part of our business community for decades. So I do think that as we're talking about that, it's very easy to say specifically women, people of color, and LGBTQ people, and it troubles me that that is not said. Also, just while I have you on the line, while I think it's so great that we're supporting our small businesses, I'd love to give a shout out to Janet Diaz for signing on to the Put People First list of demands. We're asking on a state level, across the state today, that the state government and the governor do more. I think we're disappointed that we don't have more to sign in and sign on to that petition. So I welcome you to check it out at putpeoplefirstpa.org. Make sure you take a chance to review what it's asking and give it your consideration.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. So I'll address the first part of that immediately. I think that we do, and we can always make that commitment more real and more material. I think that we acknowledge in law, in fact, that LGBTQ folks, are vulnerable to historic and ongoing biases, and that, frankly, I will say that where we don't meet that commitment in law, there is always room to grow further toward that, which is why I asked that question of Mr. Delfs, because that is a place that we can always do better. And I'm happy to say for the assembled public that, yes, LGBTQ folks make up a significant portion of the fabric of this community. of its small business community, at least 2 members of its city council. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Fisher, because it's important to speak to it directly. And I also want to congratulate or commend at least the Lancaster County Homelessness Coalition, Lanco My Home, for making a clear statement on that subject as well about their day shelter. Again, thank you, Mr. Fisher.
You're welcome. I do want to take one moment to add that part of the trouble with my trust around LGBTQ issues is that it is often forgotten in the city level. As recently as our call for murals, it was left out of the non-discrimination clause. So I think I do understand that there are people sitting in the screen right now who get frustrated by my voice around this issue. But what I would love is for it to flip around, that our city has plenty of resources, both on city council and on residents of the city and the county that are here to help. And we would much rather help than later be the noisy voice that gets the frown. There's a problem when an ordinance that's been in place since 2001 got missed on the call for murals. That there's a problem there. There's a practice that's being missed and an opportunity to create practice around inclusion and inclusionary practices. It would be the equivalent of a woman not seeing women included in 1984, 20 years after the Civil Rights Act, right? It's almost been 20 years that Lancaster City has included LGBTQ people in our non-discrimination ordinance, yet somehow it got missed. It got missed.
So, I'm sorry, I think I heard most of the characterization of what you said, Mr. Fisher, but not the content. Were you referring to and that's not on you, that's just the sound that I'm getting. Were you referring to the mural project?
The recent COVID-related mural project, if you take a look, my understanding is that both our solicitor and also I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, Councilman. I see your mouth moving, but I think there's a delay.
Well, Mr. Fisher,
I can't help.
If you are talking about the mural project, that I am aware of, and that's been communicated to city staff. And first of all, let me thank you for raising your voice on that. And there are a lot of people in the community who are available to help us with these things, and it is an opportunity, as you say, to get better at DEI across all of our city practices. So thank you for raising that. It's been communicated to city staff as well. And on a personal level, Eric, I hate to do this to you. I do want to move the meeting along to keep us on the specific matter of the loan fund.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to hang up the phone now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to add a little note because I have the solicitor not quite whispering in my ear because he's more than 6 feet away. We do have to keep the topic of the conversation on the items that are on the agenda because this is a special meeting and not a regular city council meeting, and that we run the risk of a Sunshine Act violation because we're steering off into areas not on the agenda.
Thank you.
Good question.
Councilor Craig.
Yes. Chris, what is the prospective timeline for the voting fund?
To get up and running or for the duration of the fund?
Get up and running.
At this point, it's as soon as we can get the documents prepared. I don't want to speak for Community First Fund right now because we don't have them present, but it really is as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, I have one more question. Is there a contract available to view? And if so, where could they find it to apply?
So I think what Councilor Diaz is asking is the application available for city small businesses at this moment? Is that correct, Councilor Diaz?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. The application is not available in a public place yet. I know that CFF and Assets have been working on the application forms already, but they're not available just yet.
Thank you.
I can add add to that, I think it's going to be available on the Cultivate Lancaster website once it is available. So for small business owners that are interested, to keep an eye out on that. If I can also add just one comment, I think it's important noting the type of lending institutions that the city has engaged with. Both Assets and Community First Fund are CDFIs, which are Community Development Financial Institutions. So by obligation, legal obligation, and their mission, they have the intention of lending out money to vulnerable communities, such as people of color, LGBTQ, disabled, low income, and such. So the beauty of this partnership is that a lot of these funds are going to go targeted to these to the group of business owners that are typically left out, and which we're seeing across the country aren't accessing a lot of these funds that are being made available. So I think it's worth noting the institutions types in this partnership as well. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Jim.
Councilor Roy, I really appreciate you contributing that. I realize I'm taking for granted because Community First Fund and Assets are fairly well known in the community, but that was a really helpful explanation of their mission. I should have started there, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last thing really that I was brought up that I was thinking about is right now businesses are being asked to take loans, and I think it's one of our best efforts to support them in this endeavor. But also in thinking that you're taking a loan, it's because you have a plan and intention around paying that back. And right now we're at a time where planning is all up in the air because of a lot of uncertainties and how things are moving. What happens to an individual who cannot pay back that loan?
Well, I can speak to the way we've handled it through the Enterprise Loan Fund in the past. Often what happens is if a business cannot meet the terms of the loan, they will come back to the city and ask if they can adjust the terms of the loan for more flexibility. And in certain cases, we have granted that. I'd have to talk through it further with Community First Fund in terms of how they have standard business practices and loan practices that they apply. So I think the overall purpose of this program is to make sure we don't lose these businesses and to keep them on their feet. So I'm hoping that we could all work together toward that end.
I'll also add, throughout this partnership, there is going to be a lot of technical assistance that's applied to it. So part of the coalition SCORE is a huge partner in this as well, which will be providing a lot of technical assistance, I believe, to borrowers receiving these funds. So there is going to be guidance along the way to come up with plans on coming out of this after the crisis.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. And thank you, councilors. I'm going to go ahead, assuming there are no other comments and no other phone calls, Mr. Hopkins.
No other phone calls.
I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Harris to conduct a vote. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Baker.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
And President Smith-Wato.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Pardon, bear with me a second. Administration Resolution number 21, 2020.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing changes to the 2020 real estate tax installment payment deadline and authorizing extension of the 2% discount in base payment period.
I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great. So what we're looking at here, and Mr. Hopkins can talk about this a little more, is altering the property tax schedule to give residents and property owners more time to pay those, and essentially to make it such that they're not paying any late fees because we're not assessing any within the calendar year 2020. Additionally, we're extending out to August 31st.
Correct.
The 2% discount period. Just we understand that financial times are hard for everyone, and this is something we can do materially, to make it very real, to give more people time to pay the property taxes that do fund ongoing essential city services, including those that are going on right now, even though most other businesses and organizations are closed. Mr. Hopkins.
Okay, so that was a good introduction. So there are two parts of this resolution, because we have two different kinds of taxpayers property taxpayers during the year. We have those who pay on the 3 installment plan that we have set up, that's authorized by the third-class city code. We have the first installment payment was due by March 13th, so that was before basically all that is going on now occurred. Those who made that first installment payment are the only taxpayers who were eligible to continue on with that 3-payment schedule. So the first part of what this resolution does is extends the due dates for the second and third installment payments. So the second installment payment moves from June 12th to August 31st, and the third installment payment due date moves from September 11th to November 30th. There are usually between 1,000 and like 1,200 or 1,300 taxpayers who pay on the installment plan. This year there were 1,040 taxpayers who paid the first installment. So we have a letter queued up out of the Treasury office to be mailed out to those 1,040 taxpayers. Assuming City Council approves this resolution, we'll have those in the mail tomorrow, so those 1,040 taxpayers will know that their second and third installment payments have extended due dates to them. The second group of taxpayers then are those who pay the full amount at one time, whether that's through their mortgage escrow or they just write a check to the city. So for those taxpayers, what we're doing is extending the 2% discount period, which right now on the original schedule, the 2% discount period ended Friday, April 17th, and we're moving that to August 31st. And then the base period, which is where you pay the regular amount of the taxes, that period is going to move to September 1st through December 31st. And what that effectively does is eliminates the 10% penalty period, which is normally about the last 4 months of the year. That is a change that, all of these changes are ones that we believe we're already authorized to do. The other thing I wanted to add here is that there was a Senate Bill 841 at the state legislature that was approved by the House, actually just signed off today, and approved by the Senate, both on unanimous votes. That basically authorized exactly what we're doing here. So this is sort of belt and suspenders. The governor hasn't signed that legislation yet, but it's the dates that we have in this resolution are supported by the state legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Council comments.
No, I think just like what we talked about last time, it's a demonstration of us doing our part to support our homeowners and landlords by giving more time for them to figure out their own kind of financials. And at the same time, while we can't provide that to renters, I hope that it's a sign of good grace to homeowners who may be landlords to kind of extend similar types of plans and idea, or just to collaborate with their tenants who might be struggling and might not be as fortunate to get this type of aid.
Hear, hear.
Just one other point to add, that the majority of the tax revenue that we receive, real estate tax revenue that we receive during the discount period. So far, before this legislation being on the agenda, through yesterday, we've received about 60% of the total amount of real estate taxes that we've levied. So a lot of that comes in because of mortgage escrows. So the mortgage companies are obviously trying to pay taxes by the discount period. So We're actually basically on schedule, on the same payment schedule that we have been in prior years at about this time.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask the mayor if she can kind of explain, when you get a moment, there's just people that don't understand that we cannot control rent increase, or we cannot tell renters that they can't pay their rent. They just don't realize that we can't just freeze people from paying their rent. And I've explained it many times, but I figure maybe you can enlighten them a lot better.
It's likely we're saying the same thing, Councilor Diaz. There is state preemption, which means that local officials, most especially city council, cannot legislate on certain items because they are not in our purview. And one of those items has to do with landlord tenant contracts and rate setting rates as it relates to rentals. So that is we just don't have the power to do it, is the easiest and most straightforward way to answer that question.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other council comments? All right, I'll wait 30 seconds or so here for a phone call to come in. None have come in so far, Mr. Hopkins?
No.
All right.
I would just add while we're waiting that that this is absolutely the right thing for us to do given this moment, and to also just point out that it will have a modest impact on our revenues. Does anybody have like a song?
Like the Jeopardy theme song.
We'll have that prepared for the next meeting.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
We need to lighten the.
We need one of those game show songs.
We're in a Brady Bunch square, so
that's true.
We could all start singing "Row, row, row your boat."
Oh yeah.
One at a time.
So, all right. Not hearing any other council comments or public comments, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Ms. Bacon.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
And President Smith-Wadow.
Aye. That concludes our legislative agenda. We still do have the April 28th meeting of council on the calendar, and that is as of right now, that is at the regular time, though that may change, and if the time of day does change, we'll be notifying across all city platforms. With that, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you all for your time.
Thank
you
you.
to the assembled public. Everybody, have a good day.
Thank you,
Healthcare.
everyone.
Stay healthy.
They called too late. Yep.